Doesn't mean it's going to be live yet. It just means we're streaming. Let me know what you see on your end with YouTube and everything there,
Yeah, I'll look.
Chris.
Oh,
and
starting.
It says starting.
Yep.
Okay.
That's your
Live,
preview.
it says.
That's the preview, you say?
It should be the preview unless you hit stream now on your channels. It may be streaming to Chris's channel right now, though.
It says live, and it's got a...
It says live, huh?
Yep, I'm seeing it.
Yep, we're live on Chris's channel.
Not live on mine, I don't think, though.
Not until you hit live
Strangely.
now, but it'll push directly through to Chris's channel as soon as you hit stream. So
Okay.
hi, Chris's channel.
Hi, Chris's channel. Thank you guys for
Hello.
watching.
Okay, this is a total surprise. I am doing a live stream with Owen, Telltale Atheist, and ShannonQ. Hey guys.
Hey, thank you for having me on your channel. And I am actually I'm streaming on my channel live also, but I can't say if it's shown up on my channel or not. It doesn't look like it has. I am working on it at this moment, but we are hoping to do some stuff on Stefan Molyneux, as evidenced by the title of my video. I think you probably put that in your video too, right? In your title, Chris?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so our plan is to go through some of Stefan Molyneux's tweets, and it's going to be an interesting one. I will tell you that much. So
All right.
give me just a couple of minutes to check on this and try to figure out why it's
We'll
not.
do like a dance. I can see we're
Oh,
definitely live
comments
on
are coming
Chris's
in.
channel.
Here we
Because I can
go.
see.
Yep.
We are
Okay.
not yet live on Telltale's podcast
Do a
channel.
cute little
We are
dance
working
there.
on it though. Yeah, we're doing.
I'm
Going
not sure
live,
why
folks.
it's not. I'm not sure why it's not streaming to my channel.
This is
That's
a grand
super strange.
experiment that I hope to repeat often on my channel. For those of you guys who are just tuning in here, because I think this is gonna be fun, interacting with other people and doing it like throughout the week
Alright,
or
so
whenever
first
it's
up was
convenient
Glenn.
to, and we just kind of pop up and do these things. So I'll try as we go along here and I get my life a little better organized around this stuff to give you guys some heads up as to when things are going to happen.
Right. I think that it's possible that maybe I'll have to upload mine after. I can't tell if
Go into studio beta and hit go live. You might be in preview mode.
It's
or go into
it's not even letting me preview. It's just the preview is blanked out. The preview button.
Chris's stream key won the day.
That's super strange, right? Is that just me? Is that really weird?
Yeah, it might be.
Oh man, that sucks.
That does suck.
Alright.
But like I said, I can upload it to my channel immediately after. I do have people watching for it though. I wish I could figure it out. But like I said, it was
tweet.
gonna be an
that I'm on.
experiment. So okay.
All right.
I'm live.
Do you guys
Yep.
want to continue on with it, or do you want me to try
Yeah.
to figure this out?
Up to you.
I'm good either way. You are the stream master right now.
Yeah, you are also the holder of the tweets.
Okay. All right. I'll tell you what. I think I may actually have an idea about this.
Okay.
So give me like 30 seconds, and you guys
Yep.
Alright.
entertain everybody and see if you can.
I'm sending out a tweet right now to let people know that I'm live.
Perfect.
And Shannon, boom.
Oops, I hit the wrong button.
Come to my channel.
Your chat's pumped. Chris is live. Do you not often go live, Chris?
No, I don't. I've only done a few, well, more than a couple, but Q&A shows on Sunday morning. I will do live sometimes just to get the interaction with the audience, and we answer a lot of questions in a short period of time, and I'm usually on for about an hour.
Very cool.
But this format of live, no, I've never done this on my channel before.
Oh, well, interesting. I'm pretty glad that I got to be here for the inaugural thing. So for people on Chris's channel, I'm ShannonQ. Nice to meet you. I have a YouTube channel too.
I think
I'm
I
not an
fixed this, by the way.
ex-Scientologist. Just a run-of-the-mill atheist. Boring run-of-the-mill atheist.
I
But
think I
with a
fixed
pretty
it.
intense interest in getting the facts right about psychological and sociological issues when those come up.
Yes, absolutely. That's kind of what I focused on, and also on having better discourse surrounding the issues as opposed to just fighting and screaming at each other all the time. Looking at having more rational, measured conversations about contentious issues. And I have a degree in psychology, so I have I guess an aptitude for it, but maybe slightly better than average aptitude for it and a passion for it, definitely. And I watch a lot of people kind of be armchair psychologists about a lot of things, and it gets me a little worked up, it gets me frustrated.
As I totally understand, because I've gone from that armchair position to being more knowledgeable about it, and then being a bit more careful about what you say and how you say it, and trying to get it more right.
I respect that. Totally respect that about you, because a lot of people think that they know a lot about psychology because they think they can just intuit it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And with what we're learning now, turns out, no, it's more like quantum physics up here, compared to what you're thinking is going on. It's quite different. So it's fun to learn about this stuff.
There's a lot of fascinating science and chemistry and philosophy that all interject with with one another and overlap. I love the philosophy of mind and studying neurochemistry, like all of that stuff.
Yes.
How we work, how we operate. It's fantastic. It's one of the reasons I think that religious people tend to be so distanced from psychology, is because once you really look at the intersection of science and the mind, it's very, very difficult to even conceptualize what a soul might be when you start to really drill it down and look at it in a finite way. And that's a big deal.
Exactly. Because what what I'm reading about, at least what I'm hearing, what I'm learning that they're learning is that, there's no place up here for like, okay, where's the causative agent? Where's the spirit? Where's the soul? Where is it? What's it doing? How do we, there's nothing there to indicate anything like that. Everything is accounted for.
Especially when you look at the destructive factors of demyelination events. So if you look at even just demyelination events, things like dementia and Alzheimer's and multiple sclerosis, and what they can do to what your conceptualization of you is, when you realize that just minute changes in the physiological construction of your neuroanatomy can have such dramatic impacts on who you are and the control you have over who you are. And those are physiological changes, not mental activities, physiological changes. You can't deny the physiological tie between the manifestation of who you are and the mental and the meat that's in your head.
Exactly.
Hard to wrap your head around. But
I know, right? Because it's so complicated up here. 86, billion neurons. I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of neurons. Every time I start thinking, and then to find out that maybe, this was the latest one for me, was finding out that the this ideal state of man that I grew up with included the idea that you would have a full recall of every moment of your life potentially available to you. Like eidetic memory, right? Or, fully photographic memory in 3D, because Hubbard would claim that that perception was remembered in a three-dimensional, array. So,
wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And you talk about like shedding old beliefs and getting rid of, the cultic indoctrination that just sets in, and even 6 years out now from working on this, I'm still finding stuff that I'm shedding. And this eidetic memory thing was one of them. I was like, always had this kind of fixed idea that was how things were supposed to be, and your brain actually was capable of that. And if you look at a brain with that idea in mind, you're going to come up all thumbs, because that's not how it works. That's not how memory works. Oh my gosh,
no, your memory is garbage. I'm sorry.
Got it fixed, guys. I think we're in good shape. If you want to start in on everything, channel? We are. I had to jump through some hoops and things, but it looks like we are in good shape. So yeah, it's not at the same link that it was before. Sorry, guys, but yeah, there you go. It should be fixed. So I'll tell you what.
All right.
Oh shit! I just realized something. I had something up on my screen that. Okay, never mind. We're in good shape.
All right.
Sorry. Okay. Apologize, guys. I started freaking out a little bit there for a second, but we're good. Let's switch over to the screen share so that we can take a look at some of these outrageous tweets. see what Stefan
Your
Molyneux
channel
has
missed
to
all the brain
say.
talk.
Let's see.
All right, let's do a little intro at least.
Okay.
Okay, as to what we're doing here, because we're gonna take a look at a guy named Stefan Molyneux. And this is an internet personality who's been around for a lot of years. He's been around on the internet for a long time. He studied history, I think, in college. He presents himself as a philosopher now, and he's he came on my radar pretty early in my own YouTube, debunking and exposing of cultic activity and abuses. People were asking me about him as a cult leader, and I didn't understand as much about that and the internet paradigm of that as I do now. So I kind of looked at him and said, well, he's got this very hypnotic way of talking. That's for sure. It's definitely this artificial thing he's doing when he's speaking for long periods of time. But otherwise, I didn't really think about him too much. Well, more recently, I found him on Twitter. And his Twitter feed is a bit of a cesspool. And I just thought, okay, coming back in on this guy and looking at him as this internet cultic leader, which he sort of denies, but kind of seems to relish at the same time. I don't really know. I thought it might be fun to come on with some people and look at what we thought were some of his worst tweets ever.
Exactly.
And that's hard to narrow that down. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. So just give you guys a little bit of context here. Let me pull the tweets up.
It's a tough task, man.
We were trying to come up with 10 tweets each, but all three of us got to like tweet number 6 before we literally broke our phones. So, and I noticed that Shannon actually named her files that she sent us. Do you swear on your channel?
Yeah, go
for
it.
She named them dumbfuckbag1.jpg, dumbfuckbag2.jpg, all the way to number 5 or 6, I think. So anyways, of course we had a little bit of overlap, so I cleared out the overlapping ones, and we should be good to go. So we'll start with Chris's, and we'll see what Stefan Molyneux has to say for himself. Here's number 1. If Jews are white, then Jews are the wealthiest and most privileged whites. That means white privilege, like hating the 1%, is actually a dog whistle for anti-Semitism. I reject that utterly. What do you think about that one, Chris? What are your thoughts?
My thoughts were, I was very confused by that. I had to read that tweet a few times, and I then had to see other tweets around it to realize that he's been on this real weird anti-Semite thing. And he had this whole series of tweets about this and how Jews are whites, or are they, and what about, and tying it in with white privilege and anti-Semitism. And it was this really toxic brew of weird ideas all floating around this basic concept of Jews being bad people.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's got this idea that they're the ones who hold they're the puppet masters who hold all the finance strings of the world. And it's just a bizarre way of looking at the world, because I can tell you for sure that their Jewish ancestry is not the first and foremost thing on the mind of international bankers.
Right. It's a really outrageous situation. And I actually heard him say a while back in a video, I'm sure it's out there. If you just go to YouTube, you can find the clip. But he said something to the effect of, he went to like Poland or Denmark or something recently, and there was no crime, there was no hatred, no calls of white privilege. And he was like, I'm not a white nationalist, but yeah, exactly. But I'm an empiricist, so it may be in with a chance. It's like, that's not even a dog whistle at this point.
Did he tweet that?
No, this is in video form. You can actually find it and watch it.
Stupid mouth.
It's still out.
Okay, so I was afraid I missed it in the Twitter feed. Wow.
Oh man, he said some gems.
Well, it would blend right in eventually. Like, one of the things he does before we move on from this one that I've noticed, and Chris brought it up briefly, is he frequently brings up white privilege because he wants to rile against the concept of that being anything.
Yeah.
And then conflates it with being Jewish, knowing that anti-Semitism is bad and hiding behind anti-Semitism being bad, to then propose a stereotypical view of what a Jewish person is, which is in and of itself anti-Semitic, in order to say the idea of white privilege is anti-Semitic because I'm conflating white privilege with this stereotypical view of Jewish people.
Right.
Thus, since I reject white privilege, that means that I'm doing so because I'm not anti-Semitic. But
Right.
does that by proposing a stereotypical anti-Semitic perspective. It's this very strange using Jewish people as a shield while being bigoted against them so that he can justify further bigotry.
It's an extremely strange mess.
He's like,
yeah.
I want to comment here, just since it's coming up, and this is a really good point you're making, Shannon. To add to this, that something that I've noticed throughout his replies, because he'll get into arguments with people, or he'll give little mic drop, tweets in response to people criticizing him, and I noticed that his defense has a lot to do with language and how he uses it. And he criticizes other people for seeing things in his language that he didn't intend, or didn't, I didn't really say that. You're just making this stupid claim. And I noticed that he's careful about his language so that he always has, or can give himself or invent some kind of backdoor or escape hatch from criticism.
It's a manipulation tactic.
Yep.
It's a higher level. If I was going to put them on a spectrum or a gradation, I would say it's a higher level cult leader skill.
Yeah.
Because it requires premeditation and a lot of thought, and it actually requires some smarts to be able to do that with language. But I see him do it over and over again, at least in how he interacts with people on Twitter. And I can't imagine if he's doing it there, he's not doing it elsewhere.
Oh yeah.
He gaslights legitimate interpretations of his perspective.
Exactly.
He refuses to acknowledge that they're legitimate interpretations, and instead gaslights the people, saying that it's not even conceivable that could be a legitimate interpretation. And really the problem lies with them.
Yep. And the most comical bit about all of this is that he put philosopher as a description in his Twitter bio. I don't think it's there now. As of like a few days ago, I think it's gone, but he called himself. That's like embarrassing, man. So anyway, I'll tell you what, let's look at a couple of others here. Let's look at the next one. See what this guy has to say. All right.
I'm already all mad.
Here's the next one. It says, people who are bad at debate. Okay, let me just read the retweet. It says, Russian bot, I'm noticing a consistent pattern with your critics. Fuck off, you ugly old incel, cult, non-human. I am glad that you have X problem completely unrelated to this debate in life. These people are, at best, idiot hypocrites, at worst, looking like complete psychos. And he retweets that and says, people who are bad at debating but can't admit when they're wrong are usually abusive. Do we have thoughts on that one?
The reason I flagged that one is because it was the least self-aware tweet I had seen him send out.
Right? There you go. That's a good one.
That's a high bar, actually.
Yes, that is a high bar.
That's a pretty high bar.
That is awesome. Something else, I want to be super careful what I say here because, I only want to say accurate and 100% true things, but his wife was a therapist for a while. Do you remember hearing about that, Shannon? Did you hear about that?
No,
okay.
She was
a therapist, and she got into some trouble at some point for encouraging patients to shun people who, under some circumstance, any circumstance, it's wrong. So, anyway, yeah, that's something to keep in mind. I think they both got in trouble over something related to that. Anyway.
Yeah, what I read on the on some wiki about him was you just don't talk about his wife,
right?
At this point, like, don't bring her up. Nobody talks about her, and that's just how that's going to be in Molyneux world,
right? Of course.
Not knowing any more than that, I found that an interesting point.
Right, it is extremely interesting. There's a really weird dynamic going on in this guy's life.
Right.
But anyway, okay, next one. Somebody says, people always call Jesus a socialist, but in reality, he heavily promoted charity. However, Jesus also criticized materialism, which often arises in prosperous free markets. So it's hard to say if total free market capitalism is Christian supported or not. I think it mostly is. And then Molyneux responds, "Thou shalt not steal. Socialism is theft." That's an
That is
interesting
really
one.
reductionist.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah,
so
thanks.
reductionist.
No nuance.
You know,
Nuance.
No, it's kind of like only a Sith deals in absolutes,
yes, exactly. Oh my God. Seriously.
Really? Yeah.
It's like black and white, us versus them, good versus evil thinking. It's one of the points on the Byte model. It's black and white thinking, just like that.
That's right.
Okay.
And the whole and also, of course, the view, the sort of the libertarian or extreme end of socialism is theft. It's not theft. That's not what it is at all. It's
Right.
like he just drops that, like, well, obviously,
Right,
and
exactly.
it's a total mischaracterization of the entire concept.
Right. We can talk about the end results of it or what each country has, what's happened in each country that's implemented it, but the fundamental ideas behind it is not based on theft in any way. It's actually giving money back to the people and giving the power back to the people. Now, that may not be how it plays out in reality, but that's what it is on paper. So,
and also, if you extrapolate out his logic, I would have to assume that he believes that socialism is theft because you're taking money from one person to redistribute to the group.
yeah.
By that logic, any society or any political structure where there's any form of taxation at all, which is all of them,
Yeah.
is there be theft. So by his standards, really any political ideology that involves any form of taxation is theft. It's just a matter of scale, which would mean nuance, but fuck.
Oh yeah. See, there is this reductionist thing where taxation is theft, and
Right.
honestly, I live in a society. I drive on the roads.
Right.
My kid goes to the schools here, and everybody has to have their car registered and inspected and everything, just like I do. There are protections I get from government. And I'm okay with paying taxes to make sure that society continues running. That's really fine with me. So,
well, somebody pointed out something today. This isn't my original thought, but I thought it was a really good, really well worth repeating, because I don't hear it that often. Is you're going to pay more in taxes if we had, say, universal health care or something like that as a program.
Yeah.
But you're also going to be paying a lot less.
Yes.
If anything,
Exactly.
right, that you're paying now for all the medical stuff that you're paying for. Like, all that goes away.
Yeah. I have zero medical bills. I'm Canadian, right? So
I paid 33% of my income last year toward health insurance. And that's standard. That's not like, oh, I had some medical emergency. That's just what I have to pay, period. Like the premium plus the deductible. And I actually did pay out the deductible. Give me 1 second here. I'm just going to switch headphones real fast, okay?
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, those arguments really drive me nuts because they're very individualistic arguments.
Yes.
I don't agree, therefore, this entire system is a violation of my human rights or something. And you go, well, all right, then there's an island, go live on it,
Yeah, and also, like, he's an atheist, but he's one of those atheists that appeals to Christianity because he feels that it has utility, and that utility to him is a form of social control, which I would argue is a poor utility because you don't want to use any sort of indoctrination as a form of social control. That's like, when you say that out loud, that's not good, right? Having people having a set of ideologies that makes them more malleable for being vacated. It's not necessarily what. And I think where they overlap is where he's a selfish asshole.
Right. I mean, to beat around the bush a little bit.
I'm sorry that for a second people will not be able to hear you.
Okay.
Like I said, this is my first time multicasting, so give me just a second to switch things around. Right. Okay. Okay. I'm just trying to switch my input to different headphones because my current headphones are dying. They're not going to last very long. So actually, you know what? I'm the only person that people can hear at this immediate moment. So I hope you guys really like hearing my voice. Actually, I got an idea.
Movements, so
Yeah,
nobody
our
has
mouths are just blah, 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 blah.
Hold up. I can't hear you now either. I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Chris,
boy.
we can say whatever we
let's
want.
see. Internal speakers. Okay, now I can hear you. And that's extremely concerning. Nope, not yet. Display port, no. Built-in output, no, that's not right. I know, I'm sorry guys, this is kind of confusing for me.
All at the same time, they're like, you can't use the platform you've always used automatically to live stream, and also it goes here now and nothing makes sense anymore. Also,
they must be break all the posts and specialist sites and always like kind of helped.
programming just to be able to stream when before I could just click and stream.
Everybody can hear everybody again. I apologize for the interruption, guys. We should be good for the moment. But yeah, okay. Back to it. If you guys want, we can move on to another.
Sure.
Let's see.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to remember, did we hit if women are so easily... No, we didn't hit this one. Okay, here's the next one. If women are so easily bullied into wearing uncomfortable shoes, imagine how easily bullied they are into who to vote for. What are our thoughts on this one?
I thought
shit, I can't hear you guys. They can apparently, but I can't.
You can't hear us?
Issues with
they can hear us.
Things.
Chris, why don't you tell me what you think?
Give me just a minute.
I think Stephen Money's a piece of shit. That's what I think.
Okay, let's see. Multi-output device.
If women are so easily bullied into wearing uncomfortable shoes, like what?
Oh, shoot. Hang on. How do I... Okay, there we go. Audio settings.
Owen. I have a bunch to say
issues.
About this
I'm sorry, guys. Oh, it's so frustrating. Issues.
YouTube is awesome.
Go YouTube. Woo!
Awesome and incredible.
I have a bunch.
Okay, let's see. Same as system. I'll try this one more time.
See if you can do it. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
All right, I'm gonna turn on my headphones.
Uno, dos, tres.
Connect AirPods.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Connected. I know you guys love me walking through. Okay. I know you guys love me walking everybody through technical issues and things, but okay, I think that we're in good shape.
It's okay, the version on my channel is going to be great because I'm editing all this out.
We're in good shape.
This is awesome, man. No, this is cool.
Okay, we're in good shape again. I apologize. Yes, everybody can hear everybody again.
Cool. It's not like you're sitting there yanking cords out or something.
Yeah, I know. We'll get through this. We will figure this out. I may actually edit mine down too.
We'll get through it together.
So here's the question. If women are so easily bullied into wearing uncomfortable shoes, imagine how easily bullied they are into who to vote for. What are your thoughts on that one?
Okay, so first off, I have highly object to the entire concept that the beginning premise, women are so easily bullied into wearing uncomfortable shoes. I don't agree with that. So then the whole second part just makes it 10 times worse. Because I don't think women are bullied into who to vote for any more than they're bullied into wearing uncomfortable shoes. I don't know. Shannon, what do you have to say about this?
It assumes a susceptibility to influence by default. That women by default are susceptible to influence to go towards whatever standard is set for us. And that susceptibility to influence is then conflated with bullying. And because of that, wear high heels, if barely at all, for that reason, because they're uncomfortable shoes. And I choose to not wear uncomfortable shoes, not because I'm not going to be bullied, but because I have other options. That's a personal choice I make. Some women who do wear those uncomfortable shoes are not wearing those uncomfortable shoes because they're bullied. It's because it's an aesthetic preference that they have, and they're willing to have that trade-off because that aesthetic standard that is their individual preference is worth the discomfort, or they find a way to usurp that discomfort and work around it and get insult stuff. But I can't believe I'm having this conversation about shoes. This is the point that we're at.
The dude
But
is
having aesthetic standards isn't indicative of weakness of mind. It's indicative of aesthetic standard and what you're willing to trade off. But his conflation is just ridiculous, and he does that frequently. He makes a bold, ridiculous assertion that requires underlying assumptions in order for it to make any sense. Then he can deny those assumptions because they need to be read into it to make sense. They're not explicit. But they're the only reason his final statement can even have any ground to stand on, is because of those underlying assertions, which almost never make sense. But that's what gives him culpable deniability, because they're not explicit.
right.
Exactly. Oh, I didn't mean that.
Right.
Even
exactly
though,
right.
you fucking did.
Yep. Yeah, it's almost like dog whistles in some sense, right? Like he's saying something that appeals to, like, it appeals to a certain subset of the population, and he knows it appeals to that subset of population, and that's why he's saying it. But it gives him plausible deniability in a lot of ways. Like he can say, "Oh, I didn't mean that."
You know, I just realized that this is probably actually a key difference between internet cults and real world cults, because real world cults are all cloak and dagger. All the real crazy is hidden away most of the time, and there's levels and all that kind of crap. And you don't know a whole lot about what's going on there. But with the internet, you know everything the guy's ever said.
It's very true. That's
right?
very
That's
true.
all you know.
So he has to his language has to be that much sharper than it has to be in real life.
Yeah, and it's actually impressive in many ways, like how he kind of dodges around things and hints at stuff and things like that. Like it's seriously impressive manipulation. So
I hate
anyway,
to give him credit, but it is a very unique and attuned skill set.
Yeah,
that not everybody has. And you need to be a bit of a sociopath in order to have it, understand it, and execute it accurately, understanding what you're attempting to elicit.
Yep.
Which is why I hate to give him credit, but it is a very attuned skill set.
I don't.
That he has.
I don't think that I would call being really skilled at manipulating people giving him credit. I wouldn't say that that's giving him credit. I would call that just calling him the monster that he is.
That guy can murder people like a champion.
Exactly. Give him credit. Credit where credit's due, right?
Give him credit.
Talking gold medal standard here.
Exactly. Okay, let's look at the next one. It says, Democrats and leftists want America to keep killing brown people. I have fought for the killing to stop for 15 years, and they call me racist. They call me racist. Psychotic. Oh,
there it is.
Yes.
I hadn't seen that one or heard that one before. Stop it.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yep. Democrats and leftists want America to keep killing brown people. I have fought for the killing to stop for 15 years, and they call me a racist. Psychotic.
By what metric has he fought for the killing? Have you seen his tweets about Black Lives Matter?
I haven't, actually.
I have not. I didn't get that far down.
What does he say? Give us some insight.
He firmly on team #Blue Lives Matter.
Right,
that.
just like went outright.
And like unironically, like full on using it as a rhetorical device for manipulation. Like,
of course, that's his MO. That's his MO,
right.
Yeah.
Because yes, of course, Blue Lives Matter, police lives matter.
Yeah.
But he leaned into it.
Yep.
In order to use it as a rhetorical device to play on the extremes. Like, he does that a lot. He proposes the extremes as the only reality. And then the extreme that's more towards his side, he works to normalize so that it seems more reasonable than the other extreme. on the opposite side, and he proposes that that's the only view on the opposite side, yet this one's more nuanced.
Yeah,
the one that I want.
One of my commenters actually said she thought, or he, I'm sorry, I'm barely seeing the comments as I'm going here, which is why I keep going out of frame.
Right.
But suggested that maybe that first line had to do with abortion.
Democrats and leftists want America to keep killing brown people. That one?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I just switched back to it so the audience can see it again.
I mean, it's just, to me, that just speaks of... sorry.
No, I'm so sorry. I was just going to say that would make sense because I have seen him tweet stats, stats about how abortion is disproportionately harming Black populations because Black teenagers are getting pregnant and more often than other people. So I can see him using that as a pivot point by saying, I made all these racist posts about Black people in order to fight for pro-life. Therefore, I've been fighting for for Black
and they call
people.
me a racist.
I know.
What?
Oh my God.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
It is so obnoxious, man. Okay, I'll tell you what. Why don't we move on to the next one here? Let's see. He says, somebody said women were very important members of society. While men ran government and workforces, women ran the community and raised the next generation. It's sad how much people underplay the influence of women in the past. And he says, men create and protect values. Women transmit them, both essential. Okay, so just to summarize what his position here, as I understand it, he's saying men builds the world, builds the values, build everything around us, and women are just supposed to kind of be in the kitchen supporting men. Is that kind of the idea behind this?
Yeah.
How do you tell?
I mean, and that's just the surface level understanding.
Yeah.
So go ahead and lay it on me.
By the way, that was Beck Sand, by the way, who made the abortion thing.
Very
nice.
Good callback.
That shout out there. Yeah. Thanks.
So, Shannon, I want to know how you feel about Stefan Molyneux saying that women are supposed to follow men's lead in setting values and protecting them.
This harkens to traditional gender roles, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He's it's subtle.
The real
so subtle.
Subtle as a tractor.
Right?
Yeah.
So men, even just the first statement that men. I can't see the tweet on the screen that we're looking at, but the men create values essentially.
Yeah. You can't see the tweets?
It denies the fact that women have an equal contribution in the ongoing dialogue about what constitutes a moral society. It essentially says that they're not a part of that dialogue. The men are that dialogue with women removed from that dialogue. And your job as women, after we decide what values are, is to teach our kids what those values are. That's your role. You don't get to decide. You don't get to contribute. You get to transmit to the children because your job is the children.
Right.
And then those male children will continue that cycle and the female children will continue transmitting.
Right.
It also removes the fathers. Like if I was a father, I'd be a little bit pissed off because that removes the fathers from being active contributors to their children's perceptions of society and the values that society has.
Yeah.
Like as a father, and he is a father, if I understand correctly, wouldn't that be aggravating to you? Like, aren't you cutting yourself short even in just looking at that one specific role, the role of raising children and imparting values onto children? You're suggesting that that's a woman's job. You're removed from that. Your job is elsewhere. Your job is not with the children to impart values onto them. That's what you're saying there. That's
right. That's
job,
true.
Not yours.
True. I think, the way I read it is worse because I think that he's just taking the women out of any, he says both essential as some sort of an attempt at a saving grace that, hey, they're both, we can't live without both of them.
Well, the kids would just die.
Yeah, exactly.
But clearly he's got this hierarchy here.
Yeah.
And it is funny how he aligns with Christians because they'll definitely align on this point At least when you get into some of the more fundamentalists with the umbrella of protection and the father, you know, and all that. So that's what this brings to mind for me, at least.
Right. And so much, it's like, you know, the father is the head, the mother as the manager of the home and the children and that whole thing. Yeah, I actually drew a picture of that for one of my videos at one point, but yeah.
Was it the umbrella thing?
Yep.
Yeah.
It was the umbrella thing. It's pretty obnoxious. Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Let's take a look at the next one. It says...
I don't want to.
I know. We will power through this for the sake of information.
Be brave, Shannon. Be brave.
Yes, exactly.
I don't want to do it anymore.
He says
so weak. I'm easily bullied.
Oh, just give it time. It gets worse. You think it's bad now.
I know. We haven't even got to the ones I picked up.
Buckle in here. It says, we all know the score. Women were all for the Equal Rights Amendment until they learned they might get drafted. Men got to vote because they had to register for the draft. Women got the vote, dodged the draft, and voted for free welfare money, pensions, and health care. Thoughts?
Give me a minute.
Dude. I mean, wow. I read this and I almost fell out of my chair when I read this one earlier. Because he's like, this is so accusatory, right? This is like women as a whole, as a group. You know, they all got away with not having to get drafted, not having to have any real responsibility for society, is somehow what he interprets being eligible for the draft. He's done so many tweets about the fucking draft.
Oh, I know.
And he's Canadian. We don't even have one.
Good point.
Right. And well, this is because he had that one about, well, it might come up, you know, the one about how, you know, you have to sit down, right? Because you're not eligible for a draft.
It'll come up.
Yeah. So, you know, so we all know the score, right? Like we all, like, here's the dog whistle right there. We all know the score. This is how it is. We're so put upon that we're the ones who have to go fight in the wars, and that's what entitles us to have the vote. It's kind of an interesting Heinlein type attitude from Starship Troopers, you know?
Yep. I agree with you. And like I said, it is going to get worse, and that one is going to come up, and we'll all have a good laugh and cry simultaneously probably when it comes up. Okay. So, all right. So those were... As I said, we actually, we all three went through Molyneux's, hang on, actually, let me switch cameras here. We all three went through Molyneux's stuff individually, found some tweets that were rough, and so everybody sent them to me. I compiled them. There was some overlap, so I removed some of them. So let's move on to Shannon's set of tweets. This is dumb fuck bag number 1. So let's look at dumb fuck bag number 1 and see what he says. I hate to break it to you, but women are much less economically productive than men because women are on average physically weaker, slightly less smart, and often disabled by childbirth.
Disabled?
Okay, fascinating. What are our thoughts on this one? What are your thoughts on this one, Chris?
Chris didn't look at mine beforehand, I can tell.
I did not.
Surprise!
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, okay, the first thing I want to comment on is this guy is this like IQ. I mean, he takes this idea of IQ and he turns it up to 11. I mean, it's all throughout his tweets about how women on average have lower IQ than men. And I would challenge what statistics he's using, because when you do a worldwide survey of IQ, you get different results than you do when you only look in one country and zone. And most surveys are national or local or whatever. They're not international. The other factor, of course, is that IQ is a fool's game, because what the hell is it measuring?
Right.
It's measuring crystallized knowledge. If you're using the Wechsler or the Stanford Binet, it's not measuring aptitude.
It's not measuring like a level of knowledge, is what you're saying?
It's measuring a level of crystallized knowledge. So it's measuring what you're able to look at now. So I'll give you a prime example that comes from my coursework when I was in psychology. When I was doing my honors seminar courses, I studied perception pretty heavily, and one of the courses that I took had to do with perceptual cognition and personality development and intelligence. So there was 2 courses because it was a big enough group of us that were graduating that we were split into 2 classes. We both took a baseline Wechsler, which is a type of IQ test.
Mm-hmm.
One of the courses pushed the study of Euler diagrams. Euler diagrams are a diagram that you can use in order to visually dissect a syllogism. And syllogisms are heavily leaned on in IQ tests. So my class, the class that I was in, we pushed that part of the curriculum using Euler diagrams up. And then both classes, after we did that, retook the test. Same class, it was only like a month and a half later. My class's average after studying the Euler diagrams was significantly higher by a standard deviation than the other class. And these are all honors students, all around the same age, all the same education level, all had taken a baseline, and the baseline increased significantly for the class that studied how to utilize Euler diagrams in order to assess and answer syllogistic.
So you're saying that in the study that you're referencing, there were deviations beyond a reasonable amount.
Yes, it demonstrated to us. They utilized it to us while they were teaching us about IQ tests. They utilized it to show the 2 classes that it's not measuring what your aptitude is. It's not measuring what you're capable of knowing and demonstrating knowledge of. It's just showing what you are able in this small compartmentalized test, what you're able to demonstrate knowledge of now. Because once we were able to use Euler diagrams to dissect syllogisms, which are heavily utilized in Wechsler IQ tests and the Stanford Binet, we skewed significantly higher than the other class by a standard deviation, even though our baselines with the other class that didn't learn that skill started the same.
Very fascinating stuff. So the bottom line, to sum all of this up, back to the tweet.
Is the point.
Yeah, right, exactly. I hate to break it to you, but women are much less economically productive than men because women are on average physically weaker, slightly less smart, and often disabled by childbirth. So I guess that's...
And how are we disabled by childbirth?
I know, that is just this like little zinger that I think he just decided to throw in at the end. Just
exactly.
Patently false.
Hang on, I'm going to go get some tea real fast.
I was playing soccer 3 weeks after I gave birth. I wasn't disabled, and my kid weighed 8 pounds 9 ounces.
Well, Shannon, that's because you're a warrior.
I will never refer to my mother as disabled because she had me. I mean, give me a break.
Shannon is a warrior.
Women are capable
and
of
obviously
after having children. We're not disabled. And it also assumes a couple of other things, too. It assumes that the higher earning jobs are jobs that have a physical component. That you need to be able to utilize your body to perform those jobs, and just when you look at the metrics, it's not even actually the case.
That's a good
where you need to use your body to perform them well aren't generally the higher paying jobs. They're the lower paying jobs. It's usually jobs when you're utilizing some component of your mental capacity.
Yeah, that's super fascinating. Like white collar versus blue collar.
Disabled is irrelevant anyway to higher earning jobs. So that point is irrelevant to ultimate earning potential. Like his arguments are so dumb. When people look at them and they're like, yeah, that's right. Speak truth to power, Stephanie. Yeah. I'm like, you're an idiot.
That's what it's about. He thinks that he's speaking truth. Yeah. He thinks that he's laying it on the line, saying things nobody wants to hear but are true anyways, and he's full of it. Okay, let's...
Well, he is right about the first part.
What's that? Women are much less economically productive than men?
No, that nobody wants to hear what he has to say.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I was like, all right. We're on the same page. Gotcha. Okay, so that was dumbfuckbag number 1.jpg. Let's look at dumbfuckbag number 2.jpg, see what it is here.
I'm really glad you liked my naming convention.
Yeah, oh my god, it's awesome. I love it. So strange. Do you know that female lipstick simulates sexual arousal? Can you imagine a man showing up for a business meeting with a giant artificial boner straining at his pants? Yet lipstick is perfectly acceptable in the business world. That's
right.
Extremely strange. I'm not really sure how to take that one. I think that I'm just trying to process this still. I apologize.
It's a lot to take in.
Okay, so he's saying
a lot of things.
He's saying, all right, so let me just lay this out here. There are there's a difference between, there are levels of degrees between different presentations of sexual arousal. So, you've got pupil dilation and things like that. Pupil dilation is not the same as just a rager, right? They're very, very different things. I don't really know what to say about this. Like, so he's conflating
magnitude, perhaps.
Yeah, so he's conflating two extremely different things here. Is he saying women shouldn't wear lipstick to the office? Is that what he's saying? Or is he saying women shouldn't be in the office? Or
I think he's going towards women being in the office is a sexual distraction to men, and utilizing the fact that women wear lipstick as evidence, because the only reason he can think of that a woman might wear lipstick is in order to perform some sort of sexual display with the idea in mind that you're attempting to attract
but
me.
men wear like ties and button-up shirts and cufflinks, and they get their hair done when they go to a business meeting, and I would compare all of that to wearing some lipstick. Like, it's all the same, basically, right? You're trying to improve your appearance.
The point about the sexual arousal point, though, right?
Right. What do you think about it?
Yeah, Chris,
well, I think it's patently ridiculous. I don't think, if anything, that's a subconscious marker for us. And
right.
It also has taken, culturally, we also understand it and are raised with understanding that lipstick is something women do to accentuate their lips, because it's an aesthetic we all have learned to like.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is separate from the whole reproductive process. We don't, when we're in heat.
Right. Okay. That's an okay way to say it. When we're in heat. That's a good way.
That explains a lot.
It could be, but it's not about smells. For us, it's a lot more about sight and sound, So
yeah,
this is kind of like bringing some minutia of biology out, and then saying exactly like the point you made, and then let's raise the bar to 11 with the hard on.
Yep.
I mean, come on, dude. This is called false equivalency to the max.
Yep. And something else I've noticed too is he uses like evolution a lot to try to prove his points. But it's like a reductio ad absurdum kind of thing, where he will say, this is a pretty fair example. So he'll say that baboons, have bright red asses when they're in heat, I think, right? And
correct.
And this is exactly the same with humans, but that's not actually. I can't tell you if that's true or not. I think it's possible that bright lipstick is just a social thing, not like if you go to Africa or Japan or some other country that doesn't really use lipstick, and you put lipstick on, would they automatically find that attractive? I don't know that they would. Is that inherent in us?
That's an interesting question.
No.
It doesn't seem to me like it's an inherent.
No, it's learned behavior.
Yeah, it's a social construct that
it's cultural. Yeah, it's totally a cultural construct.
Aesthetic preferences very much would be, I would think, because what's considered or deemed to be attractive, but from society to society, aesthetically, can be very distinctly different. And there's countries where it may be borderline unattractive or offensive.
Right.
So it can't unilaterally
right,
that
exactly
conclusion be drawn.
I can agree.
And let me throw one more thing into the mix just to bitch slap Molyneux for a second here.
Okay.
If you're wearing lipstick, you can't see what the person's lips are actually doing. So you can say it simulates sexual arousal, but it also covers up sexual arousal.
Right. That's an interesting.
And it's assuming red lipstick as well. I'm wearing lipstick right now, but I'm wearing a nude lipstick. If my lips were flushing, if you two were arousing me right now, you're not, for the record.
Okay. All right.
You'd have no way of knowing, because I have a brown nude color covering my lips.
Right.
Exactly.
And honestly,
that's a very good point.
I don't think that, like, there may have been some point in our history where we were finely tuned enough to tell by lip shade if somebody was turned on or not, but that's not now. I'll tell you that much right now. I don't think that you can tell now, but anyway. Okay.
Like I said, if anything, it's a subconscious marker.
Yeah.
It's like smell for us. I mean, it's there, but it's not something you're going to think
Right,
about.
right, exactly. So that was dumb fuck bag number 2. Let's take a look at dumb fuck bag number 3.
I'm so glad it made you happy.
Took my daughter to see my old graduate school desk in the University of Toronto library. You telling me this guy was a teacher somewhere? That's disturbing. Couldn't help but notice the almost complete absence of white males in the entire building. Next time we build a civilization, we should really aim to hang on to it. Ooh, okay. That sounds like blatant.
Everybody take a minute.
Yeah. Okay. So all right, let me just dissect this. From my understanding, he's saying,
fuck, dude.
I know. He's saying
that is fucked up.
White males built this world, and now it's not made up of.
Apparently.
Right. Exactly. This is like a little bit beyond a dog whistle. Honestly, I would say this is a little beyond a dog whistle.
I lost my mind with Paul about this actually for a while.
Paul is on my channel watching this, by the way. He's watching, I think.
Like if you look, so he took his daughter. Let that sink in too. This is what came through his mind when he took his daughter to his old university where he was a student. He was in a section of the student where the building, one of the buildings,
Molyneux was,
where his desk was, and he took note around him that he wasn't seeing more white men than any other race or gender. Now, I'm willing to bet at the University of Toronto, when you look at all of the group demographics and break them down, it's probably white men and white women are probably the largest demographic if you group them together by race. Once you separate them by gender, they're probably pretty close. And then the other demographics are multiple demographics of people of different genders and different races from all around the world. But the white men and the white women, if you group them together, are probably close to 50% of that university anyway. So what he's essentially saying is because men, white men specifically, who are still a large demographic, aren't the largest demographic at that university, overtaking the women, overtaking everybody from a different race, overtaking anybody from any gender, that means that the society that we built is degrading and breaking down.
Right. That's a pretty good assessment of it, I would say. What do you think about it, Chris?
Okay, so yes, everything you just said. I will point out that, again, the language is crafty, so he's not making definite statements. He's only implying things. You know, he states these facts, and then he lays out this last line that sort of could be misinterpreted, right?
Right.
But clearly, you know, we're talking about white racial purity here. You know, this racial divide, you know, diversity is inherently an evil, bad, horrible thing. It is a civilization destroying thing. This is a theme that also runs through his tweets. Diversity and forced diversity is a bad thing. It's against the natural order of things, is I'm sure how he might go about saying it in Molly speak. So, you know, that's kind of what I see in this. Is I see a very, very, very racist and you know, sort of ethnocentrist sort of
with the
mindset,
little salt and pepper of misogyny, just for good taste.
All right, just to sprinkle it in for flavor,
sprinkle it, and I'm sure there's some transphobia sprinkled all over
somewhere in there. Yeah, I'll tell you, man.
It's all part of the diversity picture, right?
Yeah. This kind of goes back to what I was saying before, where he was saying he goes to like Poland or Denmark, and it's largely homogenous. It's basically all white people, and there's no crime, no calls of white privilege and all of that. But I'm an empiricist, and so white nationalism is in with a chance with me, is what he says. You know, so it kind of shouts out to that again, but. All right, let's look at the next one. It says,
like, you almost get the idea of Hitler, you know, from beyond going, so there's a chance?
Oh, yes, exactly right. It's outrageous.
It's crazy. This guy's nuts. This is nuts.
It says, come on, ladies. You know this all as well as I'm sorry. You know this as well as I do. All the attention you get from men when you're young will dry up in your 30s, leaving you just another sagging face in a crowded cat shelter. Wow. Use your power to build a family, not for silly vanity and free drinks. Okay. What do we think about that? Since it's Shannon's, what do you think about it first, Shannon?
Well, I'm in my 30s.
You're still just as alive and vibrant as you were in your 20s, so.
Yeah, and even if I wasn't, it wouldn't goddamn matter. His consistent conflating of a woman's value with her ability to be the stay-at-home mom in a nuclear heteronormative
Yeah.
family is infuriating
Yep.
to me, because he's telling me what it is about me that makes me valuable and what I should find valuable in myself. And if I deviate from his conceptualization of what makes me valuable, then I should really feel sad about myself, because my life is going to be awful and I'm going to end up alone and sad, because the only way I could be happy is if I'm with a man and I have children and I raise those children and they love me and take care of me when I'm older, because I guess I shouldn't have a job or friends or a social life or any sort of other construction or education that fulfills me in any way. He's determining what should fulfill somebody like me and what role I should have in society. And if what makes me happy and what I want deviates from that,
Then it's
then
irrelevant. Then you're wrong. Just you're
I'm
wrong and
wrong.
irrelevant.
I'm going to be miserable.
Yep.
And I'm dumb for thinking that I won't be,
Yep.
because he knows what's better for me than me.
Yep. And it's really a callback to that whole evolutionary past thing. Women's only value is to have children and take care of them, and men's only value is to provide for those children and for the wife or whatever. That's what it boils down to with him.
Yeah. I'll just comment on the first line of the tweet. Come on, ladies, you know this as well as I do.
Mm.
This is, I mean, the condescension's alarming.
It's thick, yeah.
Yeah, it's real thick, right? But it also speaks to the fact that he thinks that we're all in on this big, exaggerated delusion that we all know is really just a delusion: diversity and equal rights, and considering that women are as valuable as men in society, and not just for certain roles but for whatever role they want to play. All these things are just a pretense. We're all just putting this on. It's against our real nature to be this way. Come on, this. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
You're not really happy. You're
it's
not
like,
really
Jesus,
fulfilled.
man.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Okay, let's take a look at the next one here. Okay, so he was retweeted by Donald Trump Jr. This is getting fascinating.
Found
yeah.
that one. Yep, sure
Yep.
did. And
So-
it was great.
Stefan Molyneux says...
I'm afraid to look at this.
Oh, get ready. It's so Stefan Molyneux says, it's interesting that if you don't have a uterus, you can't have an opinion on women's issues, but you can compete in women's sports. Oh, my God. And then Donald Trump Jr. says, solid point, laughy face. Oh, what a messy. Or thoughts? This one was yours, Shannon. Do you want to go again?
I think his transphobia is so explicit that it's palpable, and it's the thing that he tries to hide the least.
Yeah.
And he knows that having dialogues regarding women in sport is contentious.
Yeah.
And he's utilizing that in order to simultaneously be misogynistic and prop himself up, because he gets a lot of criticism for being an abject fuckbag when it comes to his misogyny. So he's utilizing his transphobia on a very contentious issue that people who aren't transphobic may well have an opinion that's nuanced about, to say, hey, there's nuance here that people are acknowledging. So how come people aren't acknowledging my nuance? Like, if you can be a trans woman and compete with women in sports, he's conflating a trans woman with a man in order to make this point as well. That means that you're a man who is with women and acting like women and doing women things, I am also a man. How come I can't have an opinion and have it be acknowledged?
Yeah.
So he's utilizing his transphobia on a nuanced issue to be able to say, hey, it's okay for them, but it's not okay for me. And essentially, we're both men. So why isn't that okay?
Yeah.
Like, there's so many layers of his shit. Like, there is no marginalized group. Like, unless you're a white dude, this guy's your enemy.
Yeah. I think that there is a nuanced conversation here. And he is boiling it down to the absolute basics in every way and being done with it. So yeah, it's just toxic. It's not good. It's not helpful at all what he's doing here. And Donald Trump Jr. isn't helping either. So is that a fair assessment? You think, Chris?
He's usually so balanced.
I know. Yeah.
Yes. I know. Don Jr. is usually the smart one, right?
Right. Yes, exactly. Right.
That's actually a fair statement.
Right.
I actually have come to think of them as they are portrayed on Saturday Night Live.
Oh, I don't think I've seen that.
Oh, you're missing out, man. Hilarious. So check it out. But
I'll check that out.
Anyway, Don Jr. is always the one doing all the talking.
Oh, okay.
And with the wink, wink, nudge, nudge, sort of.
Right.
Whereas
Exactly.
Eric
That's
is just
funny.
like explicitly saying.
Yeah, because as you guys broke down, there's really 3 points being made there. So when he says solid point, he's also got wiggle room there to.
Yep. Exactly right.
Because of which points?
Right.
Right.
Okay, well, let's take a look at the next one. Actually, those were all of Shannon, so thank you for your submissions, Shannon.
Yeah, I burned out quick.
Dumb fuck bag number 5. Actually, we all roughly had the same number. I think Chris sent 10, but since there were duplicates, I actually weeded them down to roughly the same number. Anyway, okay, here's my first one. Reality. Give poor people welfare, you get more poor people. Give single mothers free stuff, you get more fatherless kids. Allow corporations to be legal shields for liability, you get more predatory executives. Give people free health care, they take worse care of their health. What are our thoughts on this one?
Canadian!
I know. That's what kind of cracks me up about this whole situation. He's Canadian and he's commenting as an authority on U.S. politics and telling people who does not have a right to comment on U.S. politics.
God,
you're a woman, you can't comment on it. Yeah. I know. I'm sorry, Shannon. They're always Canadian. Although,
Southern, Steven Crowder.
to be fair, we have Donald Trump. So there is that. So what do you think about that one, Chris?
Oh God. Okay. Let me count the thoughts. First off, the last thing is actually the thing that I saw that I was most pissed off about. Give people free health care, they take worse care of their health. That is just statistically not true.
Right.
Like we know statistically what the healthiest to unhealthiest countries are.
Just objectively false.
Yeah, it's so easily debunked as false. I can't believe he even wrote it so clearly.
Yep.
You get more predatory execs. I mean, there is a little bit of truth in that. Give single mothers free stuff, you get more fatherless kids. That's bullshit. That has nothing to do with why there are, or I should say very little to do with why there are fatherless kids.
Right.
I mean, is there a stereotype of a welfare mother, and are there some people who fit that stereotype? Yeah, a little tiny eensy-weensy percentage of people.
Sure.
But to say that that's, causative factor of that, come on.
Yep.
Yeah, we have kids to get free stuff. We hear if you have kids, you can get free stuff.
Yeah, exactly. As if the free stuff is
easy.
like the free stuff is enough to provide for the kids in the first place. Like, do you know how little you get? At least in the U.S. I can't speak for outside the U.S., but you get like $100 or $150 a month in food stamps per child that you have. So it's just barely enough to provide. Okay, sure. Once a year, you get like $1,000.
No, monthly. We get a monthly child tax benefit.
How much?
It depends on your income. It's on a sliding
Okay.
scale based on your income.
Fascinating.
But it starts at like $200 and can go up to $5 if you're really
Okay.
low income. And it's meant, it's if you're working, and it's meant to pay for childcare, and it's not even enough to pay for childcare, because childcare average ranges for, if you're not in school, around $30 a day. If a child is in school and you just need part-time care, it's around $15 a day. And either way you look at it, when you annualize it for a year, taking into account summer where there's no school, it's not enough to
It's
even
supplemental
cover
at best, it sounds
Yeah.
like.
Mhm.
Even in the US, it's just supplemental at best. It's not, it couldn't possibly live off of what you get from that.
You wouldn't have a kid to get an extra $300 a month.
Right.
No.
I'll tell you what.
Of course not.
Yeah.
Of course not.
They're expensive little
bananas.
buggers. I'll
You
tell
know, this
that.
also goes right back to the whole taxation and socialism is theft thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, basically, this is just a big protest. This is a series of rationalizations or motivated reasoning that he's come up with to rationalize this core belief that he has, that taxation and socialism, anything, you know, that's not, you know, it's all mine.
Yep.
Mine.
It also needs to assume the worst base instincts and actions and motivations of everybody in society for it to be true. Like,
That's right.
Give poor people welfare, you get more poor people. That assumes that people will, if you give people a handout that allows them to sustain the minimum standard for life, that'll be acceptable to them, and they won't want more and they won't want to work. That's ridiculous. If you give single mothers free stuff, let fatherless kids, that assumes not only they'll have kids to get stuff, but they'll go out and actively seek people that they're just going to leave, because apparently they'd have to leave the fathers for this to be true. The fathers wouldn't be leaving the mothers. The mothers would have to leave the fathers for that statement to make sense. So you would have to go have kids just to get a couple $100 a month without anybody else there to support you. The corporations, I'm not sure about. And the last one assumes that if somebody has free and open access to healthcare, they won't take care of themselves because they can go get it taken care of. But if they have no healthcare, out of panic, they have to take care of themselves better because they don't have the ability to get well. And it also negates the fact that a lot of the things that people have, they don't have because of their lifestyles. Like, you don't always get cancer because of your lifestyle. You don't always get multiple sclerosis because of your lifestyle. You don't always get viral infections. You don't get because of your lifestyle. You get those just by existing.
Yep. And
you can't protect yourself from a lot of healthcare issues.
Yeah, and something else to consider here is the fact that with
take a minute.
Okay, I was debating whether I want to get into draw this whole thing out or not. I feel like it's going to be productive, so I'm going to.
All right.
With taxing people more, if we raised the tax rate across the board for everybody by 2%, everybody would be paying out more money, and that means everybody would have less money, and the economy would adjust to account for that. Like, rent would change, and gas prices would change, and just everything would change to account for the fact that literally every single person in America has this much less money than they did before. The only real result, it seems to me, is that the value of the dollar outside of the U.S. would change. Now, I was thinking about this recently for the sake of universal basic income. European countries all use the euro, so some of them could change their tax rates, and others wouldn't change their tax rates, but they have all of the countries there to support each other, or to support the value of the euro. And for that reason, I think that if we raise taxes in the U.S. a little bit, it wouldn't completely devastate the economy. The government would just have more to work with, and the people would adjust eventually back to where they were before. I don't know. What do you guys think about it?
I shy away from discussing things I really don't know a whole lot about. And
fair enough. Yeah.
You know, national, economic systems and stuff are things I can talk about in a theoretical sense. But I think that there's a lot of moving parts.
There are. You're right.
That affect our economy, and there are also black swan events. But there's also hidden coming black swan events, like the housing crisis. Nobody saw it coming except a couple people did, but everybody could have and should have seen it coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have those kind of things hit you like a ton of bricks out of nowhere when you think everything is like all lined up and you got it all figured out. So I'm loath to, to go into
Engage
that
in a
ground because I think
conversation
it's
that's
quicksand.
Sure, that makes sense. Okay. Well, tell you what, why don't we move on to the next one then? Let's see what we got.
Cool.
Women who complain about men approaching them in public social places are usually just bragging about how attractive they are. Women who complain about men approaching them in public social places usually just bragging about how attractive they are. It's like men complaining that people only like them for their money. What are our thoughts? What do you think about this one, Chris?
I think it's 1000% pure projection on his part. I think the bottom part is his reality. Like, that's one of the reasons that he complains about things.
That's hilarious.
And then he just dumps this on women and throws in the misogynist twist just for fun, because that's what he likes doing. Because he really does not like women.
I know. That's how it seems, right? Like, I don't know what the guy's deal is here. What do you think about it, Shannon?
I think that I think it would be undeniable to say that there isn't a subset of women who say, oh my God, guy was approaching bars and it's crazy. Like, leave me alone because like those women exist. I've met them. They've been like, but it's a legitimate thing to say, that guys approach you aggressively in bars. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with a guy coming up to you and saying, hey, what's up? And you saying, like, I'm with somebody or I just kind of want to be alone. And they're like, okay, cool. And walk away. That's different. But for him to saw somebody tweet something. And that's why he brought it up. Like, a woman tweeted something of this, and that's why he put it up. He utilized the first fact that I brought up, that there's a subset of a subset, as a pivot point to present that's like a type of woman, and that they're specifically doing it to get attention. And that's what women do. Yeah. Women just want attention.
Yeah.
Women want sexual attention. That's like a lot of like, it's difficult to make that case from one tweet, but when you aggregate his tweets and look at that there is a theme that women either want sexual attention or shouldn't be around men because they're going to elicit sexual attention, or they're upset because they're not getting sexual attention, or they're trying to do a dominance display because they get more sexual attention, and they think that they're going to be able to prolong sexual attention, and they make the mistake of not starting a family when they don't realize that fulfillment that they get from sexual attention is going to taper off when they're no longer sexually attractive.
Right.
And then that's their value, and their value dissipates. And like, he attributes that as the primary value, the primary performative and internal value that women have. So he attributes that to women. Like, he looks at a woman holistically and says to himself, their value to me seems to be sexual, thus their value to themselves must also be sexual. That's something that will deplete. And once it depletes, they won't be happy. Maybe I'm helping them by telling them they won't be happy. I'm doing them a favor.
And it all boils down to this whole idea of like evolution. This is all evolution. It all boils down to evolution. This is our evolutionary past. This is your only value, and this has always been your only value. That's what I read from him.
Well, it's like he thinks that evolution stopped, I don't know, about 25 million years ago?
Exactly.
At least 100,000. I'll even give him credit. 150 to 200,000.
Like he believes that the level of nuance that exists in a not even a babono, troop or something. I mean, like in a lion pride or something. Like, he thinks that's the level of biological and neurological interaction that exists between human beings. And if we were that, then these broad statements would be more accurate. Even then, they still wouldn't be totally accurate, but they'd be closer to the truth. But we're not that. We have evolved, and we've got all kinds of other things. We got all kinds of bells and whistles and toys that we can play with that lower orders of life form don't have. And so we're able to think thoughts they can't think. We're able to do things and socialize in certain ways that they can't. And he doesn't seem to recognize that any of that ever happened.
Yep. I agree with you. It's like, you're right. It just does boil down to all of that. And for example, there are more obvious ways of telling that a woman is interested in you than lip blushing.
Ask her.
Yes. Oh my God. Just ask her. Yes.
Right?
There are more obvious ways. We don't need the lip blushing thing anymore. If humans ever did, or any line all the way down through humans, if we ever needed anything like that. Anyway, all right, let's look at the next one. Let's see. If a superficially unattractive man approaches an attractive woman, she perceives it as an insult, since people of similar attractiveness usually end up together. And if she gets offended at the implication that she is less, she's less attractive. You have about 5 seconds to change her mind. Okay, thoughts on that one?
That's why the incels like him, right there.
Yep.
Yeah. I think I actually responded to him on this one. I can't remember what I said, but this is what gave me the idea to do this project in the first place, was looking at this tweet.
It's a pretty obnoxious one. Just to summarize, and correct me if I'm wrong here, if you guys see it differently. I'm getting, if you are ugly, then the woman is insulted that you would find her interesting. If you're attractive, then she's not insulted that you find her interesting. In my experience, I've never known a woman to be insulted that you find her attractive. I've known women to be insulted that you act like a dickhead or in some obnoxious way. If you act like an idiot in some obnoxious way, then yeah, she's going to be a little miffed at how you're acting right now. But being friendly with her or anything like that doesn't... See, here's the big issue to me. This is what I see with Molyneux. It's like he views women as like a different species that are supposed to be treated in a different way, right?
Mm-hmm. Like it's just one evolutionary step backwards.
Yes, exactly.
From men, right? And that's why men have the bigger brains and the higher IQ and the more aptitude and the bigger muscles and all this, because we're more fit, we're more adapted to our environment to control it. That's our job.
Right.
And you guys are there subservient to us to serve our needs and build our families. That's what you're there for, so we can propagate the species. But make no mistake of who's in charge here.
Yep.
Right.
That's what it's all about.
Attitude,
yep.
You know?
What do you think?
Somebody, I wanted to do this. Tom Myers says, let me find it here. Yeah. Tom Myers wrote in the comments here, just look at his avatar while you read this tweet.
Oh my God. He looks like such a, I don't know. He looks like so pompous, right? Is that the right word? Pompous?
Yeah.
Would you describe that as a superficially unattractive man? Because I would.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a good point.
I just thought, dude, speaking from experience here, like what, you know?
Yeah, that is a very good point.
It completely ignores like things like sapiosexuality too. Like women are attracted to a multitude of different physiological and character traits.
I call myself a sapiosexual, actually. I'm really attracted to intelligence. That's what it's all about. I'm just super into a girl that's like really intelligent. I don't know.
Everything physiologically about you, the way I look at it, is everything physiologically about you is subject to change. But what's a lot more static is my ability to emotionally and mentally connect with you.
Yes.
So
most
like
definitely.
That's something that's going to be consistent over time. Like unless something dramatic happens to your neuroanatomy, like that's going to be consistent over time. Where physiologically, both of us are going to change. So anyway, that I'm sapiosexual as well.
Yeah.
But like he assumes superficiality, and what's fascinating to me is he drills everything down to base biological reproductive instincts while simultaneously purporting to be an intellectual. So if we were reductive, like if we were able to simply be reduced down to just our base instincts, which he's happy to do with women and anybody of a different race.
That's right.
Then he wouldn't even, like he doesn't even have any ground to stand on if that's true. The only way he does have ground to stand on is if he elevates cis white men as somehow substantially biologically different on a neurological level from everybody else. And that's why he makes these IQ arguments. Because he feels like that gives him ground to stand on, because he can say, oh, look at this data, this massage data that says people like me are big brain, big boys who should be making the decisions for everything else. And the rest of you are subject to your baser instincts because you're not the big brain, big dick boy like I am, because I'm a white cis male.
Yep. It's really, really disturbing and cringy, and it's really hard to get through, but we're almost through it. I think
Jesus.
this is
been through enough.
Okay, here's the next one. It says,
Whose idea was this, Chris?
so the next one says, sigh. A baby is not your genetic material. It can have a different blood type.
Oh yes, I saw this, and I
Stop
actually.
Yep.
Stop it!
Yep.
No, I mean, I just.
He talks about biology all the time.
I got nothing.
I know.
He talks.
Like,
a baby is your genetic material. It's a product of your genetic material. And what does having a blood type have to do with anything at all?
Stop it!
It makes zero sense whatsoever, and it's an embarrassment.
He talks about biology all the time like he knows anything about it at all.
I know.
And he couldn't get that basic.
Well, you know
fact
he's a
right?
philosopher, and philosophers are by definition biologists too, so. So yeah, there's
Especially
that.
if they have a history degree.
Exactly right.
yeah, he's got some funny ideas about biology.
Yep. Okay, so that one was actually comedic
It can,
gold.
it can have different color eyes too, so you know what? He's probably right.
Exactly. Okay, let's look at. This is a second from the
gender.
last one. It says, "Hey leftists, frack right off with this concern trolling about radicalization, quote unquote. Communism killed over 100 million people, but you love having thousands of communists indoctrinating the young in universities. You love ideologies that lead to violence. You just hate opposition." Okay, let's break this one down. So this is what I'm seeing here. He's conflating all people who hold any kind of left-wing ideas of any sort with communists to start with.
And extremists.
Yes, they're extremists by default. I'll just come out and say up front, I'm left-wing. I'm pretty left-wing. I voted for Bernie Sanders in the 2016 election. Probably going to vote for him in this one too. And I stand for a good number of his policies. I voted Hillary in the general. I know that probably get me some hate, but honestly, she was better than Trump. I think we can say that with confidence now, or that's how it seems to me. At any rate, I'm not an extremist. I don't think I'm an extremist, right?
No.
Conflating left
that's what
wing
you
with
need to
communism.
If you're trying to build a cult of personality, that's what you need to do, though. You need to.
Well,
pander to the
exactly. It's us versus
extreme.
them.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to.
You need to make the most extreme version of something. You need to point to the most extreme actors, and you need to make it seem as though that is the generalized, normalized version of anybody who's anywhere on that spectrum, no matter where they fall.
Yep.
Right.
In order to get people enraged.
Yep.
And you generally do that utilizing misinformation because people don't fact check, so that they're enraged by the juxtaposition, and the juxtaposition isn't even accurate most of the time.
Yep.
Well, this is where you tweet out, "Hey Christians," and then say something horrible about and accurate, about the Westboro Baptists.
Yeah. Right.
But it's all Christians, right?
Yep. Conflating.
Or it's all Trump supporters or racists, right? I mean, going the other way, right? I mean, it's the same.
Yep.
Stupidity, because it's just not. It's empirically not true.
Yeah.
We can argue over the statistics of those.
No, 100% agree with you on that. I'm 100% with you. It's this whole black and white, us versus them, good versus evil thinking. If you're not on my team, then you're on the extreme end of the other team, and it's just not true.
That's right.
And if you see
it
nuance,
also
you're an idiot.
I'm sorry?
And if you see nuance, you're an idiot to be dismissed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This shit, what was I going to say? It assumes that the people on the left are fully aware of their nefarious purposes and deeds and evil heart, and we're just kind of pursuing this communistic agenda that he's inventing. Of all the words I would use to describe myself or any of my friends, communist would not even be on the list.
Right.
So this rhetoric is just incendiary. But he also does this thing of villainizing the left by telling his peeps, we're all fully aware of how destructive our belief system is because we see things the same way Molyneux does, and we're just evil, and that's why we're doing what we're doing.
Yep.
So it's just there's so much trickery going on in this thing.
Yeah, I agree. He's like honestly a master manipulator. Okay, here's the very last one. And
Thank Jesus.
I actually have one right under it, but it's just the response tweets. And I just wanted to show the response tweets because I thought it was fascinating. This says, ladies, you can't be drafted. Sit down when war is discussed. Now, Shannon, before you respond to this, you already responded to this in tweet
I sure
form.
Did.
So let's just take a quick gander here at the response.
I don't remember what I said.
Dusty Smith said, "You are literally too old to be drafted. Doesn't that mean you should also shut the fuck up?" And then Shannon said, "And Canadian." So yeah, that's an extremely good point. He's saying anybody who is not qualified to fight in a war at that immediate moment shouldn't be having a part in the conversation at all. And he technically has no place in the conversation by that metric because he's Canadian.
And also, we don't have a draft.
Oh, no, you don't?
No, we had conscription in 1917.
As he was quick to point out, in 1913,
we had conscription.
You
had to sign it.
Over 100 years ago.
Over 100 years ago during
you
World
little
War
whippersnappers.
That's
we had
interesting.
mandatory conscription. Every male between the ages of 18, I think it was like 18 or 17 and 35. So even by the standards of conscription 100 years ago, he still should be one of the people sitting the fuck down.
That's super fascinating. Did not know that. Well, at any rate, those are his tweets. I think the dude is a toxic mess. And I honestly don't even know what to say about this guy. He's got this ideology that is completely absurd, and he's spreading it to people. And actually, people seem to be believing it. But one thing I did realize, one thing I learned, he's got 500,000 followers or so on Twitter. But a follow does not necessarily mean an endorsement. I follow Donald Trump to see all the stupid shit he says. So
same with me. I follow Donald Trump.
Take that for what you will. Doesn't mean that all 500,000 of his followers agree with him. But anyways, we were having a conversation earlier about something interesting. Do you guys want to continue that conversation, or we want to go through super chats?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm fine on continuing that.
Okay, I'll tell you what.
Sure. It's 11:30 where I am right now, so I'm going to get tired relatively soon.
All right, I'll tell you what. Why don't we talk on this for about 10 minutes? We'll go through some super chats, then we'll call it quits. Will that work for you guys? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll start it out here. Should this guy be shut down? Should we stop him from talking? Why don't you give me your thoughts, Chris, first, and then we'll go to Shannon. Will that work?
Yeah. So this was a question regarding censoring Stefan Molyneux on Twitter. He should be deplatformed, that sort of thing. And I've spent time talking about this, and I've really given it a lot of thought. And I have a very particular dividing line, which I can get into, but I don't agree with deplatforming people just because they have different ideas or because of their perceived bigotry, racism, sexism, hate speech, etc. And the encapsulated argument for why is because those are relative terms that are open to interpretation depending on viewpoint. And the argument that I make to people that might not seem like an obvious argument, but is what if hate speech became a thing? This vague sort of nebulosity of a definition of what hate speech is depends completely on the point of view. So according to what I do on YouTube or on Twitter, talking about Scientology, I'm exposing abuses and educating the public at large. But from the point of view of the Church of Scientology, that's hate speech.
Yeah.
And if so, we're going to get rid of all hate speech, because somebody's offended. After a while, there isn't going to be anybody talking.
Right. I agree. So it feels to me like we have to go into situations understanding that it's possible that maybe we're wrong. If we don't go into situations with that assumption, then we're obviously going to want to shut everybody up who disagrees with us. And I feel like I can understand why. I can understand that desire. I can understand the feelings behind it, but it's not how a society moves forward, it feels to me. What do you think about it, Shannon?
So I have a slightly more nuanced perspective, but I think line up
Okay.
ultimately. So him and people like him cultivate a polarizing social environment that helps to create difficult places in the world for marginalized people to exist, because he's a propagandist who is helping to utilizing his rhetoric to embolden people, even if it's not explicitly thus. And in his case, I'd argue that, it's borderline explicitly thus,
Yeah.
to embolden people to attack, attempt to marginalize, and attempt to legislate
Yeah.
people into oblivion, or at least discriminate against them. And because he has a platform, he's able to aggregate and culminate larger groups, because people can hear his message, people retweet his message, people engage with his message, and that brings more people to his messaging. And because he's a master manipulator, it's effective. So him having a large platform like Twitter, if Twitter didn't exist, if he wasn't on Twitter, if he wasn't on YouTube, he wouldn't be able to cause that harm. So
Okay. Let me
or
ask you
if you're a
this.
marginalized group, well, there's more
Okay, go ahead.
to my perspective. Okay, so this is me saying I understand why people like him. There's a really good argument to be made that they should shut down. I also think, and that because there's people like him that operate outside of these platforms in the margins, like behind closed doors, like you said, cloak and dagger, us having the opportunity and people like us having the opportunity to counter them publicly is also really, really important. So somebody like him existing with public opposition, like me and you and Chris, matters for the people that are watching that may not be influenced by him, but are influenced by somebody like him, and see the comparison lines. Now, when it comes to the discussion about free speech and platforming, again, I see a little bit more nuance. Like, all of us are operating within the law. If we weren't, we'd be in trouble, right? So we're all we're all, including him, because he's so manipulative and calculated, we're all safe from that umbrella. So really, it goes up one tier to the businesses who are platforming us. And it's the law is essentially out of this discussion, because if we were breaking the law would already be broken, and we wouldn't be able to have this discussion, because we wouldn't be here because we broke the law. So we are essentially debating whether or not businesses should give us and other people the opportunity to continue to discuss things like this on their platforms. Now, if they had more specific standards, those businesses had more specific, clear, and concise standards that were consistently adhered to, that is a better discussion, I think, to have. Because if you are engaging in dangerous, really, really dangerous rhetoric that's harming marginalized people, there's a valuable discussion to be had about how things like that can be stopped, aside from just being countered. So if that's something that you're doing, if your entire purpose is to marginalize people, to spew hateful messages about people, should you be allowed to do that? If there was a consistent standard that protected things like that from happening, it wouldn't affect people like me, because I'm not attempting to marginalize people, so I'm not in danger. But the standards would need to be consistent, and they're up to the businesses, and we don't run the businesses. So us even having these debates at best will influence society to talk to the businesses. And if we're having these debates and all we're saying when we're having these debates is nobody should do anything because it might get taken away from us too, maybe this discussion should instead be about what kind of standards should these businesses have in order to prevent things like this from happening, because society's getting more polarized, and it's because assholes like that have huge megaphones.
Interesting. What do you think about this, Chris?
Well, I'm trying to keep it short and to the point, because I know we have limited time, and this is a big discussion.
It is. We're not going to solve this in 10 minutes.
No, of course we're not. So I'm just going to present this as something to think about, because it's worth thinking about, and it's worth thinking long and hard about.
Right.
Everything you just said, and I mean literally every single word, could be repeated by somebody on the right, if we're going to talk that from our position, if we're going to say this is a left position. Some conservative YouTuber can and has said.
Mhm.
Everything you just said about us.
Right.
And about how we talk and about our values and about what we believe and what you and me and Owen here all very much agree that our values are good. Those folks over there, that conservative YouTuber who's saying all those same words about us, truly believes
That theirs are.
that they're good. And that the stuff we're spewing is evil because it destroys families, it destroys traditional marriage, all their values. They line it up against their value system. So good and evil become relative terms, right? Because everybody's quite sure that God's on their side and they're fighting the good fight. So when you talk about initiating community standards or guidelines for this, I believe that such a thing is almost impossible unless you can draw very clear lines.
That's
Like
my
has
thing.
been done for the First Amendment in court.
Mhm.
I know this isn't a First Amendment issue because it's a company thing, but I'm just going to bring that analogy in of when you are clearly, cleanly, and objectively inciting violence,
Yes.
then you draw a line. There is a lot of wiggle room around this word harm and violence and offense and this sort of thing, and people conflate these things. And I
agree with you there.
kind of have a problem with that, right?
Yeah.
So my problem, and I made it very, very loud and clear many times on my channel, was with Alex Jones, for example, is not his, outrageous lies and his outrageous conspiracy theories and his, cult followers. It's that he incited violence.
Mhm.
He told very specific lies about a very specific set of people that resulted in these people being stalked and harassed in the real world. That's when, a content creator can be held responsible for direct, real world actions caused directly by their rhetoric. You can trace the cause effect very easily. There's nothing, weird, or you don't have to do a lot of dot connecting on it.
So you think it needs to be pointed directly? I'd like to have more, like, this is something I could talk about for hours with you.
I
Because I
know.
don't think that I can fully get out my perspective. Maybe we can talk again about this sometime, because I have too many other things to say, because I think we ultimately line up, because I don't think now there's anything you can do. Like, you can't just yank him off, or people like him off right now, because there's no clear standard that he's violated.
I wouldn't want to yank him off anyway.
Well, exactly.
That I agree with you, that I couldn't also be accused of, which is why I think some of these conversations need to be about, because there already are community standards. Like you just referenced some of them. Like, there's certain things you can and can't do.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to really tighten those up better so that they are equitable and more consistently? Like YouTube, you don't even know with YouTube. Like, there's an argument to be made, no matter what, on both sides. YouTube needs to do something about what their community standards are when it comes to content and monetization and promotion, because it's just not clear. Like, that's a conversation that I think is worth having, because we're talking about businesses, and businesses won't change unless there's some sort of capitalistic pressure put on them. And we're not having the right types of discussion.
You want to talk about who's doing it wrong? YouTube is doing it totally wrong right now. So
don't get me started on that one.
High five.
Yes.
We all agree. Go team.
All right, I'll tell you what, guys. We can end it there because it's going to be a long, drawn-out thing. But we should discuss this again. But Chris, were there any comments or anything you wanted to highlight before we get off?
I'm good. I didn't have super chats during this. It was my first time. I didn't even nobody expected it or saw it, so I'm not even concerned. It was just a good time. Okay, that sounds good to me. Let me just mention, somebody said love the content to me. I'm sorry. Somebody said vibrantly Vibrantly Brantley says, before wrapping up, where can we find your guests? That's a really good question. Chris Shelton, find him at his YouTube channel. Where can we find you? Anywhere else? Chris Shelton, or at mncriticalthinking.com. That's my blog spot. There you go. And what about you, Shannon?
I have a YouTube channel called ShannonQ, and on Facebook I'm ShannonQ''tube, and on Twitter I'm Shan with 2 N's _Q0. But I would really strongly recommend you not go to that dystopian hellscape.
I honestly, part of me agrees. I do like Twitter, though, as long as there isn't much drama going on. But unfortunately, there's always drama.
You just said he didn't like Twitter.
Yeah.
That's what I heard.
I got one more. Somebody said, I had a bad day. seeing the collab. I didn't know I needed really cheered me up. Love all three of you. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. That was We Have Little Faith. Anyway, yeah, I guess we can end it there. Thank you guys so much for coming on my channel. And Chris, thank you for having me on your channel. It's been a fascinating conversation. Maybe we can get more of these going on and in the future. But anyway, yeah. All right, guys, that's where we end it. Thank you so much.
Awesome. See you guys.
Bye, guys.